All right, hi everyone. My name is Renee Huang. I'm the founder of Wild Women Tribe and the host of the Ignite podcast. If you're joining us today, you are jumping on our Zoom In series that we've been doing the past couple weeks while we've all been safe at home. Wild Women Tribe, traditionally in the last couple of years, we've been providing transformational experiences for women to get empowered and get connected, and it's always been outside. So this is a new experience for us to be indoors and to be providing some sort of connection to all you who are dialing in. Today, I'm excited to partner and bring back into my life MG, who is the owner of Rise Boxing in Park City and a championship boxer and someone I've collaborated with multiple times over the years. She's such a force to be reckoned with, super positive, and always inspires me to aim for higher goals. So welcome, MG.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here as always.
So we will dive into a little bit of a meditation for the first couple minutes just to get grounded and get in our own spaces, and then we'll move into kind of like a Q&A. I'll just ask MG about the background for the topic for today, which is ritual and routine. And then we'll have a discussion, and it'll be interactive, so feel free to chime in with your experiences and where you relate to that topic. So right now I see some of you have gotten comfortable. Go ahead and wherever you are, get yourself comfortable, whether it's in a seated position with your feet on the ground or lying down. Close your eyes and just allow yourself to sink into your breath and allow the thoughts and concerns and worries to slip in and out of your mind as they come to you. With each inhale, allow more peace and calm to come in. And with each exhale, allow those thoughts to leave your mind. Take a couple more inhales and exhales. And now, as you inhale, I want you to send your energy up high above you. Imagine hooking in, connecting to a source high above you, 300 feet above your head. And imagine a beam of light coming down from above, coming into the crown of your head as you inhale. With your next inhale, imagine that light trickling down through your crown, into your face, and your neck and your shoulders. And imagine that light and that soothing, soft energy coming into your torso, in your back, down into your tummy. And upon your next inhale, imagine that beautiful, soft energy moving down into your hips, and your legs, and your feet as they're grounded on the ground, or your sit bones if you're sitting. Now I want you to imagine sending your energy down and reaching down into the earth and connecting with the grounded, warm, comforting earth energy. And imagine that flowing up through your feet, into your legs, through your sit bones, up into your body, and up into your arms, and your neck, and your head. And imagine those energies, the grounded energy from below, and the beautiful, calming, light energy from above swirling around you and filling you with peace and with love, with the feeling of connection. And now I want you to imagine that you're outside on a path and you're walking through the woods. Notice, use your 5 senses to see everything around you. Maybe you're barefoot and you're walking through grass or on a dirt trail. Maybe you can smell pine needles in the air, or the scent of flowers as they blossom. Maybe you can feel the sun on your skin, the breeze as it blows, and hear birds or leaves, or just the wind as it rustles. I want you to imagine coming upon a clearing, and you see there's a little garden in front of you. Come up to the garden and look down and see there's some seed packets for you to plant. I want you to imagine getting on your hands and knees and digging into that rich dirt, soil. Smell the scent of that rich earth as it gets turned up by your fingers. Feel the feeling of the dirt, the moisture of the dirt as it rolls between your fingertips. Now imagine taking some seeds from each of the packets and pushing them deep into the ground, covering them up, sowing the intentions for what you wish to gain from the practice today. Know that you have within you the tools, the wisdom, the resources to plant the seeds of your day, of your week, of your future. And that no matter what circumstances present themselves, we all have that power within us to choose and to decide and to influence ourselves first, and then our families and our loved ones afterwards, the community at large around us. And take a couple more breaths. And when you feel you're ready, you can come back to our virtual circle and open your eyes. And we'll welcome whoever joined us while we were off in our meditation. And I'll turn it over to MG. I think you had a little extra gift that you were going to do.
All right, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. So thank you for that, Renee. One thing that I've been doing far more during this stay-at-home period has been meditating, and the power that that has given me has been really incredible. So thank you for that. So I use these soul journey cards almost every day, sometimes multiple times a day. And for me, it is, I don't attach any belief or meaning. All I do is look at it as a way for me to shift my perspective or to move into my day or the next situation with a perspective shift. And I trust in the fact that it will guide me. But I don't think that you have to have any sort of attachment to any faith behind it. Simply using it as a way to look positively forward and have a perspective shift. So sometimes I'll ask a question like guide me or give me perspective for the day. Sometimes I'll ask for this situation, the message for the group today, what we need to hear to move through this experience. And it may mean something different for everybody, but I'm going to draw a card for us collectively as a group. And
can you show people what the deck looks like?
Yeah, so the deck is here, Soul's Journey. They're all positive affirmations. I think one of the keys about this is that there can't be anything negative, right? So that word was envy, but it says, I am the same as everybody, but with different challenges. So shaping, sometimes it is a word that maybe I have a negative attachment to, but then I shape that differently. I am the same as everybody, but with different challenges. And it helps me understand not only where my perspective is, but maybe what the other people who I'm dealing with in my life are experiencing. They may be experiencing what they categorize as envy, but if we shape that differently, that we all are having those we all are having challenges that maybe frame our thinking differently. I think it allows us to be a little bit more understanding when people move into that space in a more negative pattern, if that makes sense. And that was the back card. So I'm going to say that that was something, but that's not the card I'm drawing. So that was a demonstrative card. And the card that I'm drawing, so I cut the deck. If I feel like I have a clean cut, then that's the card that I chose. And this card says acceptance. It says, I am learning to accept the things that I cannot change. We'll let you sit with that for a second. Seems relevant for where we're at in our lives right now. I'm learning to accept the things that I cannot change. I'm just going to read to you the short description of that card in the book. It says, right now, your soul is learning acceptance. This may force you to feel out of control in a situation or with another person in your life. Realize that the universe has given you this incredible opportunity to release control. Perhaps doing so will help you realize that there is a rhythm, a rhyme, or reason to everything in life. Rather than thinking that these are accidents that are occurring, refer to these conditions as moments of divine design. Maybe it is a person or a situation that you do not agree with right now. For the moment, instead of having a knee-jerk reaction based on an emotional response, stop, step back, observe, and make an attempt to understand both sides of the equation, which is an incredible gift for you to practice tolerance, grace, and patience. Realize that although you have come to accept a situation or a condition, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are condoning a behavior or that you support it. You see it for what it is and recognize that there is something rich to learn from it. I would say that's been my approach, or hopefully my approach, throughout this entire experience. And I think, it's easy to fall out of being in that space. One thing I've been trying to do is shorten the period of time that I move out of that space. So when I start to get agitated or frustrated or feel like I have the need to control, especially I have a small business and, everything is so uncertain. And I think it's really difficult not knowing what's coming next. And we really want to have those answers, but moving into that space of acceptance and knowing that we don't really actually need to be in control as much has been really powerful for me. Not to say that it's been easy, but so for me, those cards are a tool that I use to reshift my thinking. And if I'm not able to redirect myself on my own, it's a tool that I can use that helps redirect me. So I just wanted to share that with you.
I love that. What a powerful and appropriate card to pick for today. I thought before we moved into the group discussion, we can just talk a little bit about your background and what has brought you into the purpose that you're serving right now and your boxing studio. Do you want to just give us a little rundown?
Yeah, so I started out in the nonprofit world. I worked with low-income populations, and that was sort of my background and what I felt like really drove me. I moved into the fitness space after getting into boxing because I found that I felt like I had more of an impact in the fitness space. I loved the work that I did previously, but I do feel like the ability to work one-on-one with people and to help people make really positive personal changes with their health is a lot more mental health driven, and I feel like I have a lot more success at my goal of helping people through that space. As far as boxing goes, I came into boxing just through fitness boxing. I've been a competitive boxer now for 10 years. I've won multiple national champions. I just had my first pro fight in February, and that's sort of my background with boxing and fitness. I own Rise Boxing here in Park City, Utah. I think most of you have been or know me through that. So we do fitness boxing as well as a competitive youth and an adult program.
And for you, ritual and routine really is an interesting and grounding sort of concept. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I, through my athletic development, oftentimes I have been my own worst enemy, and I've had the physical skill, but I hadn't always had the confidence or the belief in myself as an athlete and as a competitor. And so through kind of the process of working on that mental component, I developed several routines and did a lot of space on work in the space of kind of cognitive therapy and how to improve my performance. And several of the things that have worked for me are developing these routines. Some of them come about by accident. I want to bring up Jenna. Jenna and I trained together some, and we were talking once about the physiological responses that happen when we show up at the gym. And every time she gets to the gym, she puts a piece of gum in her mouth, and she starts to have this like salivation, like
it's happening.
Right? And I've had those similar experiences. So every time I pull up into the parking lot to train, I feel like I need to go to the bathroom, which seems weird, but so I go to the bathroom first thing when I get in there. But I think about what I want to get out of my training as I'm wrapping my hands. I turn that practice of wrapping my hands as a time to think about what skills I'm going to work on. I try and leave whatever chaos I have from the day behind me. And really one of the distinguishing factors for me between routine and ritual is whether there is significance and meaning attached to it. So we all brush our teeth every day, and that's routine, right? We do it because we just do it. But there's not really this meaning attached to it, but there's opportunity to move those routines into something a little bit more ritualistic. And so I try and identify these places in my life where I'm having these reoccurring situations, and how can I attach meaning to it so that I'm utilizing that time to improve my performance, work towards my goals, improve how I show up as a parent, how I show up as a business owner. And I think that one myth surrounding ritual and all of that is that we have to add it into our life and that we have to take time. And for most of us, time is a luxury that we maybe don't feel like we have. So for me, it's really about identifying where I already have those places in my life that I can add in that meaning and make something as small as switching from my regular street shoes to my boxing shoes. How can I turn that into something that adds value to my workout and adds value to my training and really sets the intention for what I'm moving into?
It sounds like the key word that you're using is intention, like taking something that might be a habit, that might just be habitual and something that we do without thinking too much about it, and then adding a layer of thought or meaning or purpose to that.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I'm going to give you an example. So I was training for the Olympic trials for the last forever, but the last year more specifically. And I was training at 5 a.m. every morning as my first session, and I would wake up and I would drag my feet, and I was like motivated to train, but getting up was a struggle for me. And so I started the night before, and I started this maybe a year and a half ago or so. The night before, I would get my workout clothes and whatever I needed, and I would put them right beside the sink in the bathroom. And that, it started this ritual the night before about the target of my training, how much it mattered to me. And in the morning, I'd wake up, I knew my stuff was there, I'd get out of bed, I'd go straight there, put on my stuff, and I'm out the door. And it felt like it gave me this organized structure where I showed the devotion to my purpose of training. And it was a really small thing, but it completely changed how I showed up at the gym each morning. And I think those sorts of places, so I try and identify where's this place that I struggle. I know, Renee, you and I have talked about this. It's like, for me, making breakfast for my kids or taking them to school can be this frantic, I need you to hurry, you're blah, blah, blah. If you're a parent, you've probably been there. But I started to shift my thinking, and that's 15 minutes of super valuable time when I'm always feeling like I'm short on time with my kids. So then how can we create some sort of routine or ritual or consistency within that structure that then adds value to that? So I'm really, really big about looking for these areas in my life that maybe don't feel quite as grounded as I'd like them to, and how can I create some sort of habit or routine that then moves it more into a ritualistic space because of the intention that I've applied to it.
I find right now is a really difficult time to have rituals because everything seems like it's in upheaval. And with my kids, I have 2 school-age kids, they're kind of like, okay, well, everything's futile. I mean, that's like them in their negative head, but every day is the same. It's just Groundhog Day. Why do we need to get up in the morning? Why do we need to do certain things? And I've struggled with implementing like a weekend routine that kind of feels like a treat and something outside of the mundane kind of work, school, day to day, and then a Monday to Friday routine where we do get up earlier and there's specific break times, and it's been a definite challenge for me for sure.
Yeah. Renee, you asked me a question about the difference between rigidity and ritual and why there's that connotation. Yeah. And I think that's this really big sticking point is, those things that I do that work for me, there are days that it doesn't play out right. And I think the key is recognizing that we're not perfect and that it's not going to always pan out the way we want it to. So I think it's like this flux, right? And we want to have those structures in place. And really, once we're consistent with them, I think we start to see the value that they add. But I think it's equally important to be soft with ourselves and recognize that you have to have ebb and flow. So I think it's one thing that I've experienced in the past is if I fail at that routine or that ritual, then I just quit doing it because I screwed up, right? And so I think having the systems in place and really understanding once you've done it, you see the value that it adds. I mean, there's tons of cognitive therapy science that shows how much more successful we'll be at succeeding with our goals if we apply routine to them and some significant link to our core values. But I think that, so once you've experienced it, you know it to be true, but then you move into that space of being like, all right, today it didn't happen. Cool, tomorrow I'm still gonna do it and maybe it'll work again tomorrow, but it doesn't change my belief in the system or the process. And I think that is incredibly important. We're all hypercritical and we all strive for this perfection. That's just like, it's not possible. We have to move away from that.
So having that positive intention to ground our ritual first, and then being soft and gentle and not like overly critical if it didn't really meet our expectations or if we couldn't control it into a certain outcome that we were expecting. Yeah. I think those are great pieces of advice.
Can I chime in for a sec?
Yeah.
Before we get too far away from the like picking out your gym clothes, I kind of just had this aha moment because I used to do that all the time. And it started that I would only do it when I would train super early and mostly, sorry, I'm on the bike, so I'm like out of breath, but mostly so I didn't have to turn on the lights to wake up my husband. But then I realized I really like this. Like I like picking out my clothes before I get in the shower. I set them, I match my shoes, I match my sportswear, I set it there, I'm good to go, whether I'm training at 5 or 9 or whatever. And I totally don't do that anymore. And why? Like, I liked it. So I'm going to start doing that. Who cares if I get out of bed at 8:30 instead of 6:30 and train at 11 instead of 9 or whatever. That was something that I actually looked forward to. So yeah. There are things that can be the same, even though it's different right now.
Yeah, fully. Jenna, I had a similar experience. And this is like maybe insight into, I am not a very, I don't feel like I'm a very organized person. If somebody described me as that, I would be like, I don't know. But, so when I do that, when I set out my clothes beforehand, I'm like, holy shit, I am on top of things, right? I feel super ridiculously proud of myself. And so for me right now, same thing. There was no reason to. I didn't have to do that. But I kind of looked back and checked in. What are the things that I did regularly anyways? And why don't I keep doing those? Because they make me feel good about myself. They make me feel like I'm committed. They make me feel like I'm still the same person. And I think tapping back into those things are really important.
Right. No, I love it.
Jackie had a comment she typed in the side. Do you want to voice that? I think this is a good opportunity to move into some discussion about how everyone's relating to what is coming up.
Yeah, just that simplicity of detaching from the outcome is so important in goal setting. When you go into something with a want and a desire of where you want to be in a certain situation or experience, that's a little bit different than, sorry, that's a dog, than being fully attached to, creating a fail or win associated with it. And I think a lot of times too, as adults, we feel like we have all the answers. And what I've also learned through all of this is like getting curious with the people around me of what else is needed in order to best take care of myself. So if I'm losing track of those routines, or if I'm finding it hard to navigate what will be a ritual that will serve me, it's like generating that conversation with my quarantine partner or with my kids. Like, what do you want to get out of today? What do we want to get out of today? And generating it more as a sense of community versus just putting all that stress and responsibility on myself. Because I feel like I'm also carrying a little bit of the weight of the world in a stress factor during this time.
I love what you're saying about bringing those around us into it, because as someone who likes to control to feel safe, I think that's so important for me, like to detach from that and to realize I don't have all the answers, and hey, there's other people around, like my kids, who might have other input, and to recognize and value that there are many different ways toward a success, and there's not one definition of success. So that's been my challenge towards softness and learning to be forgiving and not so attached to outcome.
Can I add something?
Definitely.
I was just going to say that I think sometimes too, it's important to think about a ritual as something that is sacred to you. So not just like implementing or taking a routine and putting value to that in a way that feels like a ritual, but thinking about moments that you already have in your day, or even small moments that you could add into your day that feel sacred. So like me being in the grass right now is a sacred moment to me, and I try to lay in the grass every single day when it's warm enough to do so and there's no snow on the ground, and that is a ritual and both sacred to me. Or even taking moments in the evening, whether it is a cocktail or whether it's a cup of tea, I know like that is a ritual, but it is also sacred to me because signifies to me that this is the moment that I am done doing, and now I am just moving from doing to being. And whether that's getting comfortable and sitting down, and if it's a cocktail, then that means no one can ask me to drive them anywhere. I'm not leaving the house again for the evening. But it's these small moments that I find that are both ritual but also sacred, so it feels as though it's refilling my cup as well as like a routine or ritual.
That's fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. I've heard from several people that one of the challenges of working from home is you're always in the same space. So my boss, for example, one of his rituals is to leave the house. So to mark, like to have small pieces of time where you're transitioning and you're allowing yourself to transition, even though you might not be physically going anywhere. But so he'll leave the house and he'll walk around the block. And I think even before that, it can start with like putting on your work clothes, like getting ready for the day, and then leaving the house. And even if it's only a couple minutes, like setting that intention, like now I'm moving into another space. And it allows your brain to kind of mark the closing of a chapter and the transition to a new space. I like to close the day with a bath. I don't do it every night, but when I do it, it's like my time. I set the music, I put the candles on, and it's like I'm not on computers or social media or anything. And I meditate, and that's my wind down. And like you're saying, Peggy, it feels super sacred, and it feels like that's something where I'm honoring myself and something that I'm giving to myself. Does anyone else want to share right now? I feel like this is a good.
I love the idea of realizing that it's sacred, because I have all these rituals that I didn't even realize were sacred. But now that I'm like listening to everything, I'm like, wow, I do that. And I do need that. And I do love that and crave that. So make it sacred instead of just one more thing that I do, like make it that much more special.
The pause is really important. And I think the self-dialogue is also, it can be important. You know, you can say to yourself, okay, Jenna, this is time for you because you've earned it and you deserve this time and it means a lot to you. So it sounds kind of kooky, but talking to yourself and talking to parts of your body and like recognizing your mind or being thankful for your strength or your resilience, your immune system for being healthy. Like I think taking those times and marking those chapters and like having that self-dialogue can be really healthy and powerful.
Mm-hmm. I read somewhere that the difference between routine and ritual is whether you're on autopilot. So like if you get in the car and drive to work every day, half the time you don't know what you drove past. You don't remember if you hit red lights, like you just got there, right? And that's that autopilot mode. Like you get up in the morning, you get ready, you leave, and you just did it. And but if you move into that space of awareness where you're thinking about the joy of these 10 minutes in the car or whatever it is, I think that's what moves it into that spiritual sense. And, you know, ritual has this connotation of, you know, I think of religion and it has to be these super specific ways. And if you screw up the ordering or the routine, then or the method that you do it, then it doesn't count.
Yeah.
But that's, you know, that's nothing. One, I can't remember the book. I remember it was by Thich Nhat Hanh, but there's a portion in the book where he's talking about washing dishes as a form of ritual. And so one thing I've done through this stay at home is I quit using my dishwasher and I'm washing my dishes by hand because it's crazy.
So brave.
He talks about like filling the water. So you like stand at the sink and let the water fill up and you feel the warmth of the water and like really like tap into all of your senses and think about like how calming water is super therapeutic. And so I think about like the temperature of the water and the satisfaction of the dish coming clean. And it is insanely therapeutic for me. But I think it's also just kind of an exploration in, can I turn this mundane thing into something that I like really, really look forward to? And it's, I don't know, I feel like if I can do that with washing the dishes, I should be able to do it with almost anything in my life, right?
Yeah.
What about other people? Do they have reflections on things in their life that are habitual that they can turn into ritual or that they're noticing can be a little more intentional about?
I use driving in my car. I have a horse that is about 25 minutes away from me. So I'm to the barn every day. And my child, I live in West Valley and my child goes to school in Park City. So we commute a lot. So I use every time that I get into my car for my mental gratitude for the day. And I think of as many, it's like a brain dump of everything from having an atmosphere to clouds to clothes and home. And so that's a ritual that I do every single day that I'm in the car.
Awesome. Yeah, I drive normally in my normal life. I drive down to Salt Lake several times a week. And that whole drive from Park City down to Salt Lake, I will listen to meditations or I'll just meditate on my own. And like, I do recognize certain landscapes as passages of time and distance. And that is very therapeutic to me as well. What about anyone else?
I feel like during this time, I've been trying on a lot of different new rituals that might work for me. So one thing that I have loved doing is when I'm done working is to go outside and take a walk, like just as a reset, and like clearing my slate and bringing on other parts of my day. But again, it's everything is so new and different right now that I like the trying part of the ritual aspect. And then like I really love how Peggy shared like the sacredness of laying in the grass and how much grace we can give like the weather for not being able to lay in the grass, and like how can we apply that to ourselves when we can't do a ritual that isn't as clearly out of our control as the weather.
Yeah, I like that idea of we seem to keep coming back to that idea of being gentle, and it's bringing up the concept of resolutions after the new year, how they can be so fixed and so forced that at the first indication that we are falling off the wagon, we abandon all hope of that resolution. And I like the idea of the ritual being softer and just more fluid, and the idea that you can make it what it needs to be. It can serve you for a week and then you can move on to something else. But there's nothing fixed about it that has to be constant.
Yeah, I think it's super important to, we've talked about this multiple times now, to not beat ourselves up or worry about it breaking if we lose touch with that routine or ritual. But there also is every time that you repeat a ritual, and by ritual I mean that there's an intention placed on whatever action you're doing. So I'm going to use Peggy's laying in the grass example. Neurologically, every single time she lays in the grass with that intention, psychologically the meaning of that increases. So I also think that even though it's twofold, so be soft on yourself when you lose consistency, but also don't not go back to it, because we want to keep on building, and it's progressive, it's exponential. And so the value that we get out of it, the therapy, and this is not my opinion, this is like scientifically backed. They're like, you can find studies that show how the brain functions, and the depressant state of anxiety and stress from those rituals, you achieve that depressive state of anxiety and stress quicker the more times you've performed that ritual. So I think that allowing the weather's bad today, I can't lay in the grass, who cares, move on, but then next spring tapping back into it, and over the span of your life or your summer or the year or the week, that experience is going to add more value, and you'll it's just like meditation, like your ability to get into that meditation a little quicker happens the more you do it, right? And so that's why people abandon meditation so quickly, because they don't have enough practice and the brain can't quite adapt to it. So I think like there's for sure importance in being gentle with ourselves, but I think there's also one of the things that make these things so valuable is that it requires a sacrifice and it requires a devotion. And if we don't maintain that devotion to it, it loses its value. So I think, and I think that's true for everything. The harder we work at things, the more sacrifice anything requires, the more joy we typically get out of it, and the more pride we have in those actions. So I also think it's important to maintain that perspective about putting in the work.
Do you have any tips for people to do that?
Oh, that's a good question. Do I have any tips? I think, so for me, journaling, I don't journal. I wouldn't say journaling, but I plan out my day the night before, always. And I've been doing this maybe 2 or 3 years, but my days are kind of hectic. And so it allows me to put that structure in place. I know exactly what I'm doing. Once I have that order in my day, then those routines and structures become a little bit easier because I'm still mapping whether or not the weather sucks or whatever other factors happen. But if I have, I think if you have one period of the day that is your time to tap in, you have a higher likelihood of missing it, right? So for me, I'm probably overboard. Like I have 20 pieces throughout my day that I've assigned this meaning and value to. So if I miss 10 of them or 15 of them, I still have 3 or 4 places where I tap in. And it literally is for me, like tying my boxing shoes is one of them. Wrapping my hands is one of them. Like, so all of these little things that are part of my regular routine, then if my routine gets out of flux, I still have other points throughout the day where I'm able to tap in and reground. And so if I don't have the time to lay in the grass or whatever it is, the one that I maybe want to do and is the most clear ritual, I'm still able to get back into that space of success within the grounding and the devotion. So I guess maybe in like the short term is layer up, like, have a backup plan, even though it's really not a backup plan, it's just part of your day.
And then notice what you're
absolutely.
feeling.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's time.
I've heard that 21 days is kind of the length of time it takes to create a ritual or form a good habit. So I wonder if setting aside 21 days to just notice every day at the same time, maybe it's the first thing when you get up in the morning, setting the intention and noticing how you feel, and then at the end of the day, checking back in and taking your temperature. And it doesn't have to take any amount of time. Maybe you just jot some words down, but having that time to bookend your day and just like sit in the intention and allow yourself to like return to yourself. I wonder if that's a way to help ground the ritual and put intention behind what the purpose of everything is.
Yeah, I think you have to figure out, I think that's a great idea. I also think you have to figure out what works within your life, right? Like, are you able to get up 5 minutes earlier? I think, are you able to, like, I have an alarm set on my phone every Sunday at 3 p.m. that says goal check-in. And I've probably done it once in a year, but every Sunday that reminder pops up on my phone, and it kind of, even though I don't sit down and do the work necessarily, it just triggers my intention back to the fact that I'm really working towards these specific goals. So, I think there's a lot of different ways to do it. There's a Buddhist trick of every time you walk underneath a doorway to just acknowledge that you're walking under a doorway. And I'd encourage you guys to try that for a day. Well, I've tried this so many times, and some days I'm like, I think I walked through 2 doorways, and I probably watched through like 200, right? So your failure rate is going to be super high. But those kind of things where you, like, pick any mundane thing you do, and it just helps you build that awareness of, are you living in the moment, or are you constantly thinking ahead of what you're experiencing? So there are a lot of little ways to do it. I think really finding what works in your life, and for me, a really big component of it is identifying those things that I'm going to be doing every day and assigning meaning to those tasks. And over time, it doesn't happen overnight, but over time, those things, and starting out with one thing, every time I put on my shoes, I'm going to think about what I'm grateful for today and how I want to show up. And that then over time becomes so ingrained, then I can add the next layer. And so slowly building and building and building until there's multiple points in my day where I have this meaning in this check-in. Play with it.
I love all that. Lainey, do you want to?
Yeah, I'm just going to say something real quick, and then my son needs a ride, so I'm going to have to leave. So for me, my ritual is definitely working out every morning, and I have to, and it kind of goes back to what MJ was saying, which is like, if I don't do that one thing, it kind of ruins it's a mental thing. It kind of screws up my whole day if I don't. Unless there are on weekends, sometimes I try to take like a day where I'm like, it's okay, I need a break. My body needs a break. But I mentally think about it in the morning, like, am I mentally going to be okay in my day? Am I okay accepting that I'm not going to work out that day? So that's my ritual. And then as far as like what's going on right now with like our family dynamics and stuff, I've kind of been really laid back. Like when this all first started shutting down, I have 2 younger kids. I started thinking about a ritual, a plan, like with school, and how are we gonna, like, how's our day gonna look each day during the week? And then what I realized is I just need to just chill out. As long as they get their work done, I've been like really laid back about certain things that normally I wouldn't, is like being on video, gaming all day or whatever. But my attitude is like, it's really hard for everybody to be indoors and not have any social time with their friends. And, for my kids being on their video games, it's a social thing. And I've kind of just been like, it's okay for now, So I guess my ritual for me, what I do for myself is working out. And then after that, I'm like, every day is a little different, and it's okay. It's okay, just to
12
relax.
hours of screen time is good.
I mean, yeah, it's overboard, but it's just like
Where we are.
Yeah, and I'm not going to fight it. And I even said it to my husband. I'm like, I know, I'm in charge here of our kids. It's okay. So. Anyway, I enjoyed this conversation, but I need to go pick up my son.
Thanks for joining in.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any other questions for MG?
MG, I'm curious, do you ever find yourself doing something not like you don't want to be doing, like the dishes, but like part of your everyday, you're like, damn it, why do I keep doing this? I don't want to do this. Or I don't want to think of it like this, or I don't want to.
So I would say the first thing that comes to mind is social media. Like occasionally I'll get on Instagram and I'll be like, wow, I just completely rotted my brain for 30 minutes. I don't feel better about myself. I sort of thought it was fun for a few minutes, but that's like, when I get to that point, that's just usually a check-in place where I look at like, what am I, I think we've had this conversation, Jenna, like, what do we think we're getting out of social media?
Yeah.
Because it's okay to want or need what we get from it. But it's also like, how do I make sure that I'm really getting that out of it?
What you think you want, right? Yeah.
Instead of judgment or comparison or whatever it is. Yeah. So I would say that's one. And I'm definitely like, I've unfollowed a lot of people who don't really serve me. They're not bad. It's just doesn't put me in that space where I'm like, oh, that was valuable content.
Yeah.
That is probably the main thing. And then I wouldn't say it's an experience where I'm like, why am I doing this? I don't like doing this. But I will say that I also find that the more aware I am of the things that are feeding me, the more aware I am also of the things that I'm doing that are not my strong suits, and that I would be better off having somebody else do. So right now, for example, in the gym space, I'm doing a lot of like tech space work and that's not really my strong suit. So I think it takes me a lot longer than it could take somebody else. And maybe right now is not the time I can do it, but I can more clearly identify, okay, like spend my time in my strengths, outsource my weaknesses, because if I'm spending 3 hours on this thing that I'm not really that good at, that makes me not feel good about myself because I know it took me 3 hours and it could have took 30 minutes. Like it's,
Right.
and it's this spiral. And so I know that's different, but I think that that awareness comes out of having better attachment to the things that do add value. If that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
If only we were all perfect, right? Just kidding.
Yeah, right. I wish. I don't. That would be boring.
Actually, I don't either.
Yeah, that'd be boring.
Yeah, and you know, so on this call right now, Jackie is the Lululemon store manager, and she has guided me through multiple of the Lululemon Vision and Goals workshop series, which if you ever have an opportunity to do that, it's something that I've been wanting to bring to my boxing community. But that has been a really powerful tool for me, and I'm using that as an example. But when I find these tools or these, it could be a book, it could be anything that helps me tap back into that place where I want to live, I try and keep those things around me. Like I'm not exaggerating. Like these Soul Journey cards are in my purse every single day, and I use them with my employees. Like people who probably think I'm crazy, I'm like, hey, we're gonna draw a card because you need a shift right now, and I don't care if you believe in it. You don't have to believe in it, but we're gonna have this conversation, and it works. And so I think for me, I try and keep things handy. I carry the Vision and Goal workbook with me in my daily planner, so that if I need to whip it out and look at something I wrote 3 months ago, I'm trying to shorten the time frame that I'm not living in that space. And for me, it's by having these little tools on the ready. And sometimes I forget that I have it, but I'll open up my purse for something else, and I'm like, oh, I should draw a card right now because there they are, and I'm in a funk. And it's super powerful for me. So those are little tips or tricks that work for me. And, you know, aligning myself with people who buy into that and who remind me and who kind of fuel that side of me is also important. I think, like who we choose to, you know, you're the combination of the 5 people you spend the most time with. That period. Right.
Yeah, definitely.
Any other comments or questions for MG? So before we go, will you share how people can get into contact with you? Looks like everyone already knows, but for the
so you can find me on social media, MaryGuenn Vellinga, or Facebook, which I never log on to, so probably can go there. And Rise Boxing on social media on both of those platforms as well. And via text, if you have my number, I think you all do. Brittany, I wish I could see you or hear you. Are you there?
Brittany has jumped on a bunch of our calls, and sometimes she has work calls at the same time.
Okay.
So.
Okay, well, yeah, those are the main platforms.
I'm here, I promise. I am so sorry. It is tax season, and I'm an accountant, so I am like multitasking today.
Oh, good on you. Thanks for being on, though.
I'm listening, I promise.
Awesome, okay. Yeah, that's where you can find me. Yeah,
and your website?
Oh, website is riseboxing.com, I think.
Yes.
Like .com.org.
Not your forte. That's okay.
But also, all of you guys, check out Renee's Wild Woman Tribe. Will you do that same spiel? Where can we?
Sure. Wild Women Tribe is online at wildwomentribe.net, and then we're on Instagram and Facebook as well. There were a bunch of other calls that we've done over the past couple weeks with everything from facilitated breath work to art therapy and different work sessions on self-growth opportunities. So if you are curious, you can follow the links to some of the recordings and listen on your own time. Yeah, so thank you guys for joining. It's fun to meet new people and to circle back to coaches that I love. Send me a message if you have feedback or questions, or if there's someone you think we should feature. The email's connect@wildwomentribe.net. And yeah, have a happy rest of the week. It's springtime out there, so hope you can go out and lay in the grass like Peggy and roll around and be grateful for where we get to live. Right, take care, everyone.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you. Thank you.